The Big Valley was more than just a hit Western series. It was a symbol of strength, family, and frontier spirit that captivated audiences from 1965 to 1969. Led by the powerful matriarch Victoria Barkley, the show became a staple of American television. But while the Barkley family triumphed on screen, the actors behind the iconic roles faced very different realities. Behind the fame were personal tragedies, hidden struggles, and heartbreaking losses. In this video, we take a closer look at the stars who brought the Big Valley to life, and the tragic circumstances that ultimately took them from us. Their stories deserve to be remembered, not just for how they lived on screen, but for the human challenges they faced off it. Richard Long was born on December 17, 1927, and portrayed Jared Barkley in the Big Valley starting in 1965 at the age of 38. As the cool-headed, morally upright eldest Barkley son, Jared was the voice of reason and justice in a wild frontier, and Long's refined presence lent authenticity to the role. Yet behind that dignified screen persona was a man haunted by illness, grief, and secrets. Born into a lower-middle-class family in Chicago, Long's childhood was marred by the death of his father when he was 5. Shuffled between relatives and emotionally neglected, he developed a stoic exterior that masked deep insecurity. Though he found early fame, his Hollywood career was erratic. He was blacklisted for a short time in the 50s due to supposed leftist sympathies, and his dependability came into question following a heart attack in 1961. Behind the scenes, he battled chronic health problems, alcoholism, and an increasingly bitter disposition. He was briefly arrested for drunk driving in the early 60s, a charge quickly buried by his studio. His first marriage to actress Susan Ball was cut short when she died of cancer, and the tragedy drove Long into seclusion. His second marriage to Mara Corday was strained by infidelity and cold emotional distance, leading to their estrangement. Their son Carrie, who inherited Richard's heart condition, died in early adulthood. Another blow that pushed Long deeper into depression. Known to lash out privately, he became reclusive, obsessively controlling his public image. He died on December 21, 1974, from multiple heart attacks in Los Angeles at the age of 47. His estate, surprisingly sparse, included a modest Beverly Hills home, vintage collectibles, and residuals totaling around $500,000. Hollywood barely paused. Long, ever private, slipped into obscurity almost as quietly as he had lived. Barbara Stanwick, born July 16, 1907, in Brooklyn, New York, starred as Victoria Barkley in the Big Valley beginning in 1965 when she was 58 years old. Victoria was a woman of unshakable strength, wielding elegance and dominance as the head of the Barkley clan, and became a beacon of feminist resilience on television. Audiences admired her dignity and protective instincts, but Stanwick's real life bore the scars of relentless personal tragedy and emotional suppression. Orphaned young, her mother killed in a streetcar accident and her father vanishing soon after, Stanwick bounced between foster homes and was forced to work at a young age. She became a showgirl at 15, hiding the pain of abandonment behind a hardened persona. Her early career was shaped by affairs with powerful men. Some whispered she traded affection for opportunity. Her marriage to Frank Fay, a controlling and alcoholic vaudevillian, descended into physical abuse and public humiliation. Fay reportedly beat her, leading her to suffer several miscarriages, trauma she never publicly acknowledged. Though they adopted a son, Dion, Stanwick later disowned him entirely, and they remained estranged until her death, fueling speculation of deep emotional rifts or even abuse. Her right-wing politics made her a quiet enforcer of the Hollywood blacklist, with insiders claiming she helped blacklist liberal actors behind closed doors while remaining publicly apolitical. Despite her cool public image, several co-stars reported she was intensely controlling on set. With rumors, she manipulated scripts to increase her role's screen time. She refused interviews, shunned social life, and died alone in her Santa Monica home on January 20th, 1990, from congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive lung disease. At the time of her death at age 82, her net worth was estimated at $10 million, with her fortune largely left to conservative charities and a few loyal staff. Her legacy remains revered, But behind the legend was a woman who forged a lonely empire on silence, control, and unspoken grief. Peter Breck was born on March 13, 1929, and took on the role of Nick Barkley in The Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 36. Nick, the wild, impulsive middle son, was all muscle and emotion, and Breck's stormy portrayal won the hearts of fans who saw in him a fierce protector and romantic anti-hero. But off camera, Breck embodied many of the same volatile traits, only with less charm. Raised in poverty in Rochester, New York, Breck was often left to fend for himself after his mother abandoned the family. He cycled through foster homes and petty crimes before joining the Navy, which he later described as the first time anyone gave a damn. His transition to Hollywood was not seamless. Though he found work in B-movies and TV, his temper became legendary. Crew members on The Big Valley recalled violent outbursts, including a near fistfight with Lee Majors over scene stealing and a physical shove against a guest director. He was rumored to be heavily dependent on stimulants during filming and was once briefly hospitalized for exhaustion and hallucinations, which was spun as a nervous condition to the press. Breck's refusal to play by Hollywood's rules cost him big when he was dropped from a major Universal production after insulting the executive producer's wife at a party. His greatest professional humiliation came in 1971 when he was replaced at the last minute in the streets of San Francisco for being uncooperative and uninsurable. His personal life was no calmer. Though married to Diane Bourne, their union was riddled with open affairs, secret separations, and heartbreak when their only son, Christopher, died of leukemia at age 25. Breck withdrew from Hollywood entirely, settling in Vancouver and teaching acting from his garage. He refused interviews and became increasingly paranoid, often claiming the industry had blacklisted him for being real. He died on February 6, 2012, from complications of dementia, alone in a care home, aged 82. His assets included a modest two-bedroom house, his teaching income, and personal memorabilia, bringing his net worth at death to around $1 million. Though rarely spoken of today, his legacy is one of brilliance, rage, and a Hollywood that quietly shut its doors on a man too raw for its polish. Harlan Ward was born on November 6, 1917, and took on the role of Arthur Kleber in Drake in The Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 48. His characters were composed, calculating, and quietly commanding, traits that made him an essential, if often overlooked, fixture in the show's political and legal subplots. Fans appreciated the way he brought a sobering intelligence to the series, portraying power not through violence, but through control and restraint. Yet behind that polished exterior was a man bearing the scars of a fractured past. Raised in a cold, disciplinarian household in California, Ward often described his childhood as silent, shaped by an emotionally distant father and a mother who reportedly struggled with alcoholism. Though he served heroically in World War II, his return to civilian life was marked by a string of failures in business and acting. He was fired from several theater companies for his stiff performances and his refusal to take direction. Ward had a reputation on set for being difficult, obsessively rewriting lines and clashing with directors. His biggest failure came in 1957 when a high-profile lead in a medical drama pilot was scrapped after executives labeled him emotionally flat and cold on camera. His personal life fared no better. 2 bitter divorces, a son who stopped speaking to him in the 1970s, and rumors of a 3rd child from an affair with a married casting agent haunted his legacy. Despite his stoic public image, Ward was plagued by health issues and deep isolation in his later years, spending most of his final decade in a rented bungalow in North Hollywood. He died on March 13, 1980, at the age of 62, with the official cause of death never disclosed. Rumors whispered of suicide or a cancer diagnosis he kept secret. His estate was modest, with a net worth estimated at just $200,000, including a pension from his military service and the residuals from educational films he resented being remembered for. He was buried with no public ceremony, an eerie silence that matched the life he lived and the secrets he never let surface. Mark Tapscott was born on December 15, 1924, and began appearing in the Big Valley in 1966 at age 42, embodying minor but memorable characters like Bates and Bert. His on-screen presence felt authentic, gritty, gruff, yet faintly tragic, mirroring the real-life toll he carried behind the curtain. Tapscott grew up in rural poverty, the son of a violent World War I veteran who disappeared into a bottle after the war. Mark enlisted early and saw combat in both World War II and Korea, but never spoke of what he endured. Those close to him said he suffered nightmares and unexplained mood swings. Despite pursuing acting after studying journalism, Tapscott never broke into the big leagues, partly due to his brooding intensity and alleged difficulty on set. Directors found him unreliable, citing bouts of sudden silence and angry outbursts. Though never arrested, he was known to drink heavily and once vanished for 3 weeks during filming of a 1970s Western series, nearly costing him his union card. His biggest career failure was losing a high-profile role in The Wild Bunch after showing up to a screen test intoxicated. Privately, his marriage to fellow actress Thelma Roberts was turbulent. They divorced in 1974 after she accused him of emotional cruelty and gambling away their savings. He had 2 sons, neither of whom attended his funeral. In his final decade, Tapscott retreated from Hollywood, working occasionally as a trumpet teacher while battling cirrhosis. He died on September 10, 1993 in Los Angeles County at the age of 68, largely forgotten by the industry. His net worth was approximately $300,000, mostly tied up in a modest property in Van Nuys and a dwindling SAG pension. Despite his charm and talent, Mark Tapscott became a Hollywood cautionary tale, proof that inner demons don't fade just because the camera stopped rolling. Douglas Kennedy, born September 14, 1915, in New York City, played dual roles in the Big Valley starting in 1965 at age 50, Sheriff Fred Madden and the manipulative Alexander Morrison. Kennedy's characters reflected his screen archetype, commanding, morally ambiguous men shaped by complex pasts. Off-screen, Kennedy was no stranger to chaos. He was raised in a strictly religious and emotionally cold household, where affection was rare and punishment was routine. After graduating from Amherst, he joined the Army and served with the OSS during World War II, allegedly participating in clandestine missions in Europe. Friends claimed the trauma from those years haunted him and led to a volatile personality. Returning from war, Kennedy found moderate success in B-movies and TV westerns, but struggled to break out due to a reputation for being emotionally erratic and difficult to direct. He developed a drinking problem during the 1950s, often showing up to sets hungover or belligerent. A notorious womanizer, Kennedy had 3 turbulent marriages. His second wife accused him of emotional cruelty and infidelity, with divorce proceedings leaked to tabloids in the 1960s, citing his affairs with young extras and a rumored hush payment to avoid a paternity scandal. Professionally, his biggest failure came in 1962, when he was dropped from a major studio film days before shooting began after allegedly insulting the director and refusing to take notes. He was briefly blacklisted from major productions and worked in low-budget westerns just to stay afloat. Despite the outward appearance of a stable family man, his children later spoke of his violent temper and long absences. Diagnosed with cancer in 1972, he moved to Hawaii for treatment, where he lived mostly in seclusion and rarely spoke to the press. He died on August 10, 1973 in Honolulu at age 57, leaving behind an estate valued at approximately $300,000, diminished by lawsuits, medical bills, and years of unstable finances. Walker Edmonston was born on February 6, 1926, and entered the Big Valley in 1965 at 39 years old, playing the low-key roles of Barney and the coroner. Though minor on the surface, his characters lent a quiet authority, offering measured insight amid the emotional chaos of the Barkley family saga. Edmonston's voice had a hypnotic quality, calm, rich, and reassuring, which made him indispensable in the golden age of radio and later in animated television. Fans may not remember his face, but his voice was imprinted in generations of childhoods. Yet that golden voice masked decades of inner unrest. Born into a devout but rigidly conservative household in St. Louis, Edmonston endured psychological repression, strict discipline, and early alienation due to his secret struggles with identity and faith. Throughout his life, he kept aspects of himself hidden, perhaps shaped by that oppressive upbringing. Professionally, he was respected, but rarely celebrated. Hollywood insiders noted that he was often passed over for lead roles due to his everyman looks and refusal to schmooze with casting directors. He endured career stagnation in the 70s, struggling to find work after being blacklisted, quietly, unofficially, due to his rumored sympathies with liberal activism during the Red Scare. Though never formally charged or outed, documents later revealed he had been investigated by the FBI. His biggest personal regret, reportedly confessed to a close friend, was turning down a major animated role due to scheduling conflicts, one that went on to define another voice actor's career. His personal life was equally complex. Married to voice actress Betty Edmonston, their union was marred by long separations, alleged affairs on both sides, and a brief separation in the late 1970s. The couple reconciled but never fully recovered their emotional bond. Their only daughter struggled with substance abuse and disappeared from public life, cutting ties with her parents in the 90s. Edmonston died on February 15, 2007, in Woodland Hills, California, at 81 from natural causes. His estate, largely made up of residuals, real estate, and modest investments, was valued around $500,000. Paul Sorenson was born on February 16, 1926, and appeared in The Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 39, portraying both a gruff blacksmith and Dave Sloan, characters marked by ruggedness, dry wit, and underlying resentment, much like Sorenson himself. To audiences, he was the quintessential TV villain, snarling, morally ambiguous, and always ready with a threatening glare. But off-screen, Sorenson harbored a volatile temper that alienated many peers. Though he later found God and became an ordained minister, few knew of his darker days. Raised during the Depression by a factory worker and a devoutly religious mother, Sorenson often ran away from home and was arrested twice as a teen for petty theft. His early Hollywood years were marred by alcohol abuse and rumors of fistfights with crew members. In 1969, he was quietly blacklisted from 2 major studios after allegedly roughing up a producer during a heated dispute over pay. One of his most humiliating career collapses came when he was cast in a 1973 Western series, only to be fired after just 1 episode for creative incompatibility, a euphemism insiders used for his disruptive behavior. His personal life seemed wholesome on paper, a stable marriage and 2 sons, but behind closed doors, tensions brewed. One son became estranged after accusing Paul of being more loyal to his church than to his family. In a shocking turn, a former co-star accused Sorenson posthumously of psychological manipulation on set, claiming he weaponized religion to control others during his late-life conversion. Despite all this, he managed to rebuild a quiet life, delivering sermons in small California chapels and living modestly. He died on July 17, 2008, in Cardiff by the Sea at age 82, with the cause of death never publicly disclosed. His estate, reportedly valued at around $500,000, consisted mostly of real estate investments and church donations. To some, he died redeemed. To others, his transformation was just another performance. Joe Higgins was born on July 12, 1925, and appeared in The Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 40, playing 2 minor roles, Mortensen and a passenger. Though fleeting, his on-screen presence, defined by his thick mustache and booming Southern drawl, made him an unforgettable character actor. Best known nationally for his stern sheriff persona in Chrysler commercials, where he growled the iconic warning, "You in a heap of trouble, boy," Higgins became typecast as an authority figure, a role he both profited from and loathed. Born into poverty in Logansport, Indiana, Higgins' childhood was marked by strict discipline, religious guilt, and emotional coldness. His father, a failed preacher, reportedly punished him harshly, driving Joe to seek solitude in books and science. He later earned a PhD in aviation education, a fact Hollywood found amusing more than admirable. While he played lawman on TV, in real life, Higgins was erratic and demanding. Multiple directors recalled his hostility when denied creative control. He once stormed off a set after being told to tone down his sheriff routine. In the late 70s, he was quietly dropped from a major ad campaign after a heated dispute with Chrysler execs over royalties he felt he was owed. His personal life was no smoother. His first marriage to a college sweetheart ended amid accusations of verbal abuse and paranoia. Though he remarried later, friends say Higgins became reclusive and bitter in his final decade, convinced that the industry had used him for his voice and discarded him when the trend shifted. Despite earning handsomely from commercials, poor financial planning and failed investments in aviation projects drained his savings. He died of a heart attack on June 15, 1998, in Los Angeles at the age of 72, alone and without fanfare. His estate, which included a small home in Studio City, an aging Corvette, and stacks of unpaid royalty disputes, was valued at approximately $400,000, less than expected for a man whose voice once dominated American airwaves. Bill Quinn was born on May 6, 1912, and appeared in The Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 53, portraying two recurring characters, a physician and George Allison, both embodying calm, wisdom, and professionalism. These roles mirrored Quinn's off-screen image as the reliable background man of Hollywood, a seasoned actor whose presence was more familiar than famous. Born into show business in New York City, Quinn began acting in silent films as a child, pushed by ambitious parents who used him as their ticket to stability. He later worked in vaudeville and radio before transitioning into film and TV, building a resume of over 150 appearances. Yet beneath the image of the affable elder lay years of bitterness. Quinn reportedly resented never having landed a lead role and frequently referred to himself privately as Hollywood's spare part. During his time on Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, Quinn allegedly clashed with the director, claiming he was disrespected and reduced to an extra with lines. Professionally overshadowed by his son-in-law Bob Newhart, Quinn's relationship with his daughter's family was polite but distant. He told close friends that he felt like an unpaid extra in Newhart's sitcom of life. Despite avoiding public scandal, his emotional detachment strained his home life. His marriage to Mary Catherine Roden was long, but marked by estrangement in their final years, with Quinn sleeping in a separate room and rarely engaging in family activities. He continued working into his 70s, accepting bit roles in films like Star Trek V, where he played a blind man, fittingly a metaphor for how the industry had treated him for decades. In his final years, Quinn struggled with hearing loss, arthritis, and regret. He died on April 29, 1994, in Camarillo, California, from natural causes at the age of 81. His assets included a modest retirement home, residuals from SAG pensions, and memorabilia from his vaudeville days, totaling an estate of approximately $600,000. Bill Quinn's legacy is not carved in awards or headlines, but in the unspoken truth of Hollywood's forgotten workhorses. Always dependable, never remembered. Kevin Hagen was born on April 3, 1928, and stepped into the Big Valley in 1965 at 37 years old, portraying Amos Farrell and Barney, characters steeped in calm gravitas, much like Hagen himself. To audiences, he was best known as Dr. Hiram Baker from Little House on the Prairie, the kindly frontier physician. But Hagen's personal life was riddled with disillusionment and private grief. Raised in a broken home in Chicago, his father was a violent alcoholic who left when Kevin was 4. Hagen later confessed in a private letter that he used acting to erase a boyhood filled with dread and screaming. After serving in the Navy, Hagen tried law school but flunked out due to depression and a growing dependency on painkillers he began taking after a back injury. Though publicly he was seen as kind and generous, Hagen struggled privately with anxiety, failed marriages, and a deep sense of unfulfillment. His first wife accused him of emotional withdrawal and suspected infidelity with a co-star during his early television career. He had one son, whom he raised alone after his second wife left, citing his emotional unavailability. While he avoided tabloid scandals, Hagen carried bitterness over being typecast and once lashed out in a 1982 interview, calling the TV industry a machine for quiet obliteration of identity. Behind the curtain, he was reportedly reclusive, bordering on paranoid, convinced that former agents had cheated him out of royalties. He toured for years in a one-man show based on Little House, partly to escape debts incurred from failed investments in real estate and a health food chain that collapsed in the 90s. Hagen died on July 9, 2005, at age 77 in Grants Pass, Oregon, from esophageal cancer, having quietly battled the disease without public acknowledgement. At the time of his death, his estate was worth around $1 million, but it was tied up in probate disputes between his son and ex-wife. His passing received little media attention, fitting for a man who felt television gave him everything and nothing at once. Mort Mills was born on January 11, 1919, and took on the role of sheriff in the Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 46. With his piercing stare and clenched jaw delivery, Mills commanded the screen with a no-nonsense persona that made his character both feared and respected. Audiences recognized him as the embodiment of frontier law and order, stoic, unswayed by emotion, and deeply principled. But beyond the badge was a man whose life unraveled quietly in shadows. Born in New York City to a mentally unstable mother and a father rumored to be involved with organized crime, Mort spent much of his youth shuffled between foster homes after a breakdown in the family. Bullied for his stutter and lanky frame, he retreated into performance as a survival tactic. His early career in Hollywood was punctuated with false starts. He was fired from 2 television pilots for being difficult to frame due to his unusually tall stature and brooding expressions. Though never publicly disgraced, Mills developed a reputation among producers as the man you call when you want tension, but not talk. He was allegedly passed over for several lead roles after rumors of stage fright and prescription drug dependency spread behind closed doors. One of his worst professional failures came in 1962, when a major role in a Hitchcock project was revoked days before shooting due to personality clashes, though insiders suggested it stemmed from a behind-the-scenes romantic entanglement with a married co-star. His personal life was riddled with emotional distance. His first marriage ended in silence. The second dissolved after a private psychiatric hospitalization in the early 70s. Mills never had children, and his later years were marked by isolation, reportedly only speaking regularly with a housekeeper and his agent. On June 6, 1993, he died in Ventura, California, at the age of 74. Initial reports blamed a house fire, but the autopsy revealed he had suffered a massive heart attack before the blaze started. His estate, worth approximately $500,000, included a modest coastal home and a vintage Cadillac he rarely drove. Dick Kangi was born on July 9, 1933, and took on the roles of arm wrestler and buggy driver in the Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 32. His on-screen characters were rugged and brute force types, roles that required real muscle, not acting finesse, and in that, Kangi was perfectly cast. Off-screen, he was more than a bit player, a former amateur boxer with a jaw like concrete and fists that once earned him a stint as a union enforcer in the steel mills of Pennsylvania. His childhood was brutal. His father abandoned the family, and Dick dropped out of school in the 10th grade to work odd jobs and survive. By his 20s, he was tangled in underground fight clubs and illegal gambling dens, scraping together a living on raw strength and sheer nerve. His accidental entry into Hollywood came via Peter Breck, whom he met during a bar fight in a seedy Los Angeles dive. Kangi's loyalty was fierce and often misplaced. He became a trusted stunt double for Robert Conrad, who later shielded him from various legal troubles, including a bar brawl in 1971 that ended in a near-fatal stabbing. Kangi had a volatile temper and an aversion to authority, earning him a reputation on set as unmanageable. He was fired from at least 2 productions for punching a producer and once crashing a studio car while drunk. Never married officially, Kangi was linked to several women, but fathered at least 2 children whom he rarely acknowledged. His most bitter regret was a failed lawsuit in 1983 against a stunt coordination agency that blacklisted him after a drunken altercation on set. effectively ending his Hollywood run. He retreated into obscurity, living above a bar he partially owned in Santa Ana. He died on October 29, 2003, at age 70 in Orange County under undisclosed circumstances, though those close to him suspected substance complications. At his death, his net worth was around $300,000, mostly real estate and residuals from old shows. No funeral was held. Hollywood, it seems, forgot the man who once took punches for its stars. Charles Bale was born in August 1935 and took on the roles of Brawler and Brown in The Big Valley in 1965, stepping into the gritty Western universe at just 30 years old. On screen, Bale's characters were raw muscle, violent, volatile, and unforgettable in their blunt force. While his screen time was brief, his physicality left a bruising impression, drawing in fans who admired danger in human form. Behind the scenes, however, Bale's life was far more chaotic than his tough guy personas hinted. Born into a fractured household in Pittsburgh, he bounced between relatives, surviving an emotionally barren upbringing marked by neglect and violence. He ran away from home at 14, surviving by working odd jobs and sleeping in rail cars. Despite working on high-profile productions like Knight Rider and Chips, Bale's reputation wasn't pristine. A known hothead, he was once banned from a major studio lot after allegedly threatening a producer during a drunken argument. On the set of the Gumball Rally, a dangerous car stunt nearly killed a co-worker, and insiders whispered that Bale had ignored safety protocols to push the shot. The incident led to a quiet settlement and soured his reputation in industry safety circles. His most notorious professional collapse came in 1982, when he was fired from a directing gig over erratic behavior, later rumored to involve cocaine and explosive outbursts. Personally, Bale's relationships were turbulent. He married a former Vegas showgirl, but the marriage disintegrated amid accusations of infidelity, gambling debts, and domestic violence allegations that never reached court. They had one son who reportedly cut ties after a bitter financial dispute. The later years of Bale's life were spent in relative obscurity, raising horses in rural Texas. He died on November 25, 2020, in Tyler, Texas, at age 85 due to heart disease, gallbladder complications, and COVID-19. Despite decades in the business, his estate was surprisingly modest, valued at roughly $1 million, most of it tied up in property and royalties from residuals. Bing Russell was born on May 5, 1926, and stepped into the Big Valley in 1965 at the age of 39, portraying both Clint and Dan Kelsey in different episodes. His roles exuded silent strength and rugged resolve, often as the kind of man who did the dirty work without complaint. Blue-collar heroes in a lawless land. Audiences admired the stoic charm he brought to the screen, mistaking his calm for simplicity. But Russell's life behind the scenes was anything but calm. Raised during the Great Depression in a broken home, Bing faced early emotional neglect and was shuffled between relatives. His rebellious instincts were shaped by a bitter relationship with an alcoholic stepfather and a mother who emotionally withdrew after her own string of tragedies. Though he played loyal types on screen, off-screen Bing had a reputation for clashing with producers. He loathed the Hollywood hierarchy, frequently rejecting studio notes, and once stormed off a set after being told to soften his delivery. He was blacklisted briefly in the late 60s for publicly criticizing SAG leadership. But his most dramatic career failure came with the implosion of his independent film project in 1971. A Western he tried to direct and fund himself, which went bankrupt mid-production, leaving him financially paralyzed for years. His personal life, though outwardly stable, was complicated by a distant marriage with Louise Julia Crone, marked by infidelities and long separations. His bond with son Kurt Russell was deep but not without tension. Bing pushed Kurt relentlessly, grooming him not just for fame, but for ideological independence. After a painful cancer diagnosis, Bing Russell died on April 8, 2003, in Thousand Oaks at the age of 76. His estate, boosted by Portland Mavericks memorabilia and real estate, was worth an estimated $1.5 million, but insiders claimed several assets were quietly liquidated to cover past debts. His legacy lives on, but few know how close he came to vanishing from the industry entirely. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from the Big Valley who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.